Hey guys, welcome back. This is Naresh. So in this video, we will see how to handle error in Python. Yes, for any programming language, it is important to handle the errors. Otherwise, my program can get terminated without performing specific operations. So how do we do that? So for any programming language, there are two kinds of error. One is a syntax error and one is a runtime error. The syntax error can be, I can say print and then I will say hi, and maybe I forgot to put this parenthesis at the end, and if I do a right click and click on run, it gives me a syntax error, and it is very easy to identify that because it says that syntax error, unexpected end of file. I can just put a parenthesis here. If I run it, it will run perfectly fine. All right, but the difficult part is to know the runtime errors and how to handle those. So what I will do, I will create one sample program to show you how this runtime error can occur. So I will put a value here, so I will say a equal to, and let's assume we are taking this value from the user. So here I will do input, enter first value. Okay, this is what I want to give, and because I want to take it as an integer, so I will call it as an int function. Okay, the same way I will say b equal to int input, enter second value. Okay, and here I will take an input, and then I will say c equal to a divided by b. Okay, and then I will say print output, and here I will give c. So let's run this program. So it will say enter first value, I will say 6, enter second value, I will say 2. So output is 3.0. So right now I am getting a correct input. But let's say if I run this program and user says on the first value 6 and the second value it says 0. So remember that in maths we cannot divide a number by 0. If I do that and if I run on enter, it gives me some kind of exception. So it is not a syntax error, it is some kind of exception or error which we are getting in the runtime. So how can we handle this kind of thing? So what I will do, the formula which I have written, I can put that into a try block, right? So this entire line I am putting that into a try block. Okay, and here I am giving except block. Okay, except exception e. So this is how I am telling that whatever the error is coming, there is an object which get created, and here I will say print please don't divide the number by 0. Okay, so what is the benefit of that? That my user will know this exception they are getting because they are trying to divide a number by 0, and I can say give number greater than 0. Okay, and now if I run that, okay, so there is one issue here. Let me see. It says except exception e. So colon. Okay, so the problem which I got is I'm not writing as here. Okay, so this is a syntax error which I was getting. So whenever I say except, after that I need to give exception, which is an object of the exception which we receive, and that is the name of the object. So the variable name for that object is e. Okay, so here if I do a right click, it will say enter the first value, I will say 6. It will say enter a second value. If I say something valid, then there is no problem, okay, which we have seen before. But if I run this program again, if I say 6 and then if I say 0 and if I hit on enter, you will see that it says please don't divide the number by 0, give number greater than 0. Okay, so that's mean that my program is not getting interrupted in between. I am giving a valid answer to my user that this is the reason why you are not able to proceed further, and I can give some instruction there. Okay, and what I can do one more thing, see, whenever we are working on any programming language, it might possible that I want to use some kind of resources and I am releasing that resources before the program get terminated. So that can also be put into except. For example, here when we say C equal to A divided by B, I will say here using resource 1. Okay, so resource can be anything. It can be database, it can be some file reading operation, it can be anything. So whenever I use some kind of resources, it is a good practice that in the exception you put some code and you close that resource. Okay, so right now I am just writing close resource, but in the real time there can be some line of a code which you need to write to close the resource. For example, if you're working with the database, then you need to write close database or some other syntax which can close the database for you. Okay, so that's also a good practice that whenever you use or try or catch it, whenever there is a chance that there is a syntax error comes or when there is a runtime error comes, it is always better to close your resources in the exception. Okay, so if I do that, it will again say 6 and 8 and then I will say 0 and it will give closing resource at the end. Okay, so this is the way we can use the try and except block in Python. Now sometime what happens that we need to close the resource even if the exception appears or not appears. Here we are only closing a resource when there is an exception, but I want to close the resource every time. So what I will do after this, I will say finally. So finally is a keyword which is used for a line of a code which need to be executed every time, whether there is a exception or whether there is a no exception. So if I say here and if I do a right click and enter, it says enter value, I say 6 and then on the second I will say 2. So here I am not accepting any kind of exception. It will just go ahead and close my program without any problem, but if I hit on enter, it's still closing the resource. Okay, and if I do a right click and if I get some kind of exception, say 6 and then 0, then it's still closing the resource. If I don't have to put this finally and if I'm putting this here only in exception, in that case, as I told you, it will only close the resource when my exceptions appears. So if I say run, if I say 6, if I put a valid value 2, you will see that it's not closing the resource. But here if I say 6 and then 0, you will see that it is still closing my resource when I'm getting some exception. So it's always better to always close the resource in a finally if you want to close it out in no matter what happened, whether there's exception or whether there's no exception, put that code into the finally. So this is how we proceed with try, except and finally. So in try we keep all the code where we think the error can occur. In exception we will do some operation which will be happens when there is an exception, and finally is something which we want to do anytime if there is exception or not. So this is how we handle exceptions in Python. Alright, so thank you for watching this video. Have a great day.